Hi guys, in this episode of Shri series, we'll be talking about solving linear equations, alright? I've got two questions, 1 and 2 here, alright? Before I go into solving these equations, I want us to do a little bit of background information in order for us to understand the approach towards solving these questions, alright? Now, when you think of the word equation, you got to remember there's an equal sign, alright? So when you think of the word equation, it is an equal sign in this case here. All right, this should not be mistaken for an expression. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for instance, I have 4x plus 5 and I don't put an equal sign. That becomes an algebraic expression. The fact is I've put an equal sign there, so therefore that becomes an equation. All right, so what happens in an equation? We have an unknown letter. In this case, it's x. It has a value. It could be a positive number, could be a negative number, it could be a decimal, it could be a fraction, all right? Such that this total value on your left-hand side should be equal to your right-hand side. One of the things you learn when you're solving equations or any parts of algebra or in mathematics is this point here, left-hand side equals right hand side, and you see this in textbooks. It appears a couple of times. LHS equals RHS, and what that means is the left hand side is equal to your right hand side. That's what makes a perfect equation. All right, so let's look at this question here. 4x plus 5 equal to 17. It's important to understand what this question is telling you. All right, this question is indirectly telling you what is the value of x such that when I multiply it by 4 and I add the answer to 5, gives you 17. All right, I'll repeat. What is that number x such that when I multiply it by 4 and add 5, the answer is 17. So think of it like a coding program. You know, it's like a set of instructions, a set of operations, like an algorithm that's telling you what we need to do to get to the answer. All right, we're not here to talk about coding, we're talking about equations. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to separate the x's and the numbers. All right, what do I mean by that? So we've got 4x, we've got 5, and we've got 17. What do we need to do here? What I would suggest is you put the x here and you put the numbers on this side. All right, so what happens is you move that 5 over here. So what eventually happens is you've got 4x here, and then after the equal sign you've got the number. All right, so what happens is that is 4x and you got an equal sign. Now, one trick you got to remember is when a number or even a letter goes over the equal sign, the sign will change. What that means is what we've got here is positive 5. When it moves above the equal sign, it now becomes negative 5. Always remember the trick. When you put a number or a letter over an equal sign from here to there or even from there to there, always remember the sign will change. All right, so what happens is that becomes 17 because you've kept that there, and that becomes negative 5. All right, so always remember that's positive 5. You moved over the equal sign, that now becomes negative 5. So what do we have here? We've got 4x is equal to 17 minus 5 becomes 12. All right, so 4x is equal to 12. What do we need to do? The question asked you, what is the value for x? All right, that's what it's asking you. So what do we do here? We divide it by 4. Why? Because we want to get the x. And what do we do here? We also divide it by 4. Always remember this rule. Whatever you do on the left-hand side, you have to do it on the right-hand side. So therefore, when you divide by 4 on your left-hand side, you also have to divide by 4 on the right-hand side. If you don't follow this process, your answer is wrong. All right, so whether you divide by 4 on your left hand side or you times by 4 on your right hand side, you've got to treat the operation the same. So therefore, I've divided it by 4 on my left hand side. I'm also dividing it by 4 on my right hand side. Why are we dividing by 4? Because we've seen 4x is equal to 12. We want to divide by a number to get x, because the question's asking me state the value or calculate the value of x. So what happens here? That cancels out because we know 4 divided by 4 is 1. And what's 12 divided by 4? Basic division. and that is going to be 3. So therefore x is equal to 3. In other words, when I get the number 3 and I multiply it by 4 and I add 5, I'm going to get 17. So this is one procedure or process I tell students when they ask me, am I correct? Is the value correct? Could you please check if I'm correct? What I would do is I would throw it back at them and say, why don't you try it? Why don't you see if you put the value of x as 3 in the original equation, do you get 17? All right, so what you do is a self-check. What 4 times 3? 12. What's 12 plus 5? 17. So therefore x is equal to 3. All right, so that's how we solve linear equations of this sort. What we do, we get the letters on one side and put the numbers. All right, if there's any number that you're transferring over the equal sign, the sign has to change. So in this instant, the positive 5 now becomes negative 5. All right, and then you divide by 4 to get the value of x. You also treat the left hand side equally with your right hand side. So when you divide by 4 on your left hand side, you also have to divide by 4 on your right hand side. All right, now let's look at question 2 here. I'll just move this a bit closer so you all can see from here. All right, so 3 open brackets 2x plus 5 close bracket equals 4x. What do we do in a question like this? Now, in the previous videos, I talked to you guys about expansion. All right, expansion is an important basic process of algebra. What do we do in expansion? All right, we get rid of the brackets. And like I said, we use the arrow here just to tell you what I'm doing. So 3 times 2x plus 3 times 15. So 3 times 2x becomes 6x. You put a plus because there's a plus there. And 3 times 5 becomes 15. And that's equal to 4x. So do you now see that this equation is kind of similar to here? The only difference is in this equation, you got 2 numbers and 1 letter. Whereas in this one here, you've got 2. You got 6x and 4x as the letters and the number as 15. So what do we do here? Exactly like the same as we did here. Put the letters on one side, put the numbers on the other side. Therefore, we're going to move 4x here and we're going to put 15 over there. So I like to draw the arrow just to show you guys what we'll be doing. So what that means is I'm putting 4x over here and I'm putting 15 over there. And remember, the sign's going to change. So if that is 4x, when you move it here, that becomes negative 4x. And if this is positive 15, when you move it over the equal sign, that becomes negative 15. So what do we do there? 6x minus 4x equals negative 15. All right, so that's what we do there. All right, now what is 6x minus 4x? 2x, and that is equal to negative 15. All right, now can you see we've now reached a similar step like this in there as well? So if 2x is equal to negative 15, what do we need to divide to get the x? We divide by 2, and remember, you got to divide by 2 there. All right, so I'll just move this, put the arrow here just to show where we're going to get through, because we've got this point here. Remember, the left hand side equals right hand side. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're dividing by 2 here and we're also dividing by 2 there. All right, so what happens? The 2 and 2 cancels out, so that's an x, and negative 15 over 2. You can leave it either like this as an improper fraction or as a mixed fraction, negative 7 and 1 over 2. So what that means is when I put negative 15 over 2 in place of x, and I multiply it by 2 and add 5 and multiply by 3, that should be the same as the value I get when I multiply 4 times negative 15 over 2. That's exactly what equations tell us. Again, I'm re-emphasizing what I said in this question. You need to get the letters on one side and the numbers on the other side. When you move them, please be mindful of the sign change. All right, so in this case, that was negative 15, that becomes negative 4, and you divide it by 2 to get x. So whatever you do on your left hand side, you treat it equally on your right hand side, and you get this answer. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye now.